I just refunded a client $1,200 for a project that I already put work into, that I already finished. Why did I do that? And what was the positive outcome that came from me giving that refund? What situation led to me giving the refund? And what should you do if you're in a similar situation where there's a miscommunication between you and a client and they either didn't approve you moving forward with the project or they weren't satisfied with what you did? Should you give a refund when you already put in the work? It's not something you should do all the time. It's something that should occur rarely, but I'm going to discuss what situations and what conditions should be in place for maybe it to make sense for you to do that, and why I did it, and the positive outcome that came from doing that, and how I ended up getting my money back, and more. So let's get to it. So the background of this project that I was working on was that I was helping develop a video strategy for their business on how they could create a series of videos for their website and for YouTube that would lead to specific sales for a product they just released. And there was 2 phases to this project. The first phase as it was outlined in the Upwork contract had a list of different bullet points, and it included different aspects of the strategy, but it also included me writing the scripts for the 6 videos that were in this series. And there wasn't a ton of verbal communication. We had a meeting initially before we went into the contract, but the terms of this initial phase were a little unclear from our call. But then when I sent over the contract and I listed out the bullet points, that's where I listed out that the scripting would be a part of this initial phase. From his understanding, the scripting was supposed to be a part of a second phase after he approved this initial strategy. The initial strategy was for $1,400, and then the scripting ended up costing $1,200. I was charging a certain amount of money per minute of video. And so I billed him for the $1,400 for the initial strategy. And we got on a call, discussed the strategy. We went back and forth. I got his feedback until he was satisfied. And that went okay. But then when he saw the charge come in for the 3 scripts that I'd written so far, so I only had written 3 of the 6 scripts when he found out that I was writing those scripts, because I was talking to him. I'm like, all right, I'm halfway through the scripts. Let's talk about this messaging a bit, and then I'll get to the other 3 scripts. And then he was like, wait, you're already halfway through the scripts? And then you know how that kind of conversation goes of, oh crap. I'd already put in several hours, and he was, in his head, he understood it as that he would approve the strategy, and then he would initiate a second phase in which I would start the script writing. But that's not how it was outlined in the Upwork contract. So I even copied and pasted my bullet point list from the original offer to show him that I had the scripts included in there. But it still wasn't enough for him, because he still kind of felt taken advantage of. That in his head this whole time, he was expecting him to approve the strategy first before I started writing the scripts. But in my head, writing the scripts was part of the strategy process, because I was going to go back and forth between the strategy and the messaging as I was writing scripts. I kind of saw it as an integrated thing. So it was a fault on both of our ends that I was not clear enough to him in what would be included in this first phase. Including the scripting in the first phase is something I kind of vaguely mentioned in our call, but then I spelled it out more specifically in the offer. So it was written down in the contract, but as most clients tend to do, he only skimmed over that offer. He didn't notice the scripts were included in there, and so he went and approved the contract, but in his head, he had a different understanding. So I sat back, and initially I was going to try to fight it and be like, hey, I put in the time for this. It's literally spelled out in the contract that I was to work on these scripts. But he was asking for, because we had got on a call and he was asking for a refund. But the way that this call went down is that, and I should have recorded it for you, but there's certain privacy issues with that, with different contracts. But as I was on the call, I was trying to, in my head on the fly, trying to think of how to deal with this, of like, should I just keep fighting this? Because I defended my side of it, that it was written down. But then he was recalling our conversation and the fact that our conversation on the phone was a little vague regarding the script writing. And so ultimately, it came down to, what can I do to, if this relationship ends, in my mind, this is what I was asking myself. If this relationship ends as a result of this miscommunication, how can I walk away from this still getting a good review, or at least not a bad review, and potentially have future work with this client or them referring me to somebody else? And in my experience in the years that I've freelanced, and this is not the first occurrence of having this miscommunication issue with the client, when I take the high-level customer service approach, where even though he was partly in the wrong for not reading the contract thoroughly, I was also in the wrong for not verbally explaining that to him, because some people, they skim over what you've sent that's written, but when you're talking to them on phone, they're listening more intently, and some are the opposite. So you have to make sure that you just have to make sure that everything's clear, and that you almost double check that they understand the terms of what's included in this project. I didn't double check. I just sent over the offer. So there's things that I could have done to make sure that there was more clarity, and chances are he would have, if I had double checked, he would have been like, oh wait, no, I thought the script writing was going to be included in the next phase. But I never double checked. I never sought for that additional clarity. So I'm like, okay, I might lose $1,200 and not get that back, even though I put in the time to writing these scripts. But is it worth it to still have a happy client and ultimately keep my business afloat? Yeah, $1,200 loss in order to keep getting future clients, it's a drop in the bucket. So I told him, yeah, that's fine. And the way that I worded it was, okay, let's go ahead and initiate the refund. I'm sorry for the miscommunication, that wasn't clear to you that I was going to start the script writing as part of this first phase. Let's nail down this strategy until you're satisfied. And then let's just put a pause on the script writing, and then we'll revisit the script writing, and I'll continue. And so I was kind of being presumptuous and trying to get that in his head, that I had full expectation that after we finished with the strategy, that I would get back to the script writing, that he wouldn't just abandon it entirely, because it was a part of that original contract, but that I would refund what I had billed so far. But then I was like, okay, so I'll give you that refund, and then once we approve the strategy, then I'll continue with the script writing, and I can go ahead and then bill you that amount at that point once you're ready for me to go into that phase. So I didn't come from the place of, hey, so let's do the strategy, and then when you decide if you want to do the scripts or not, then you can let me know. I didn't want any expectation in his head thinking that I was expecting him to abandon the script writing entirely and me to never get that money back. I made sure I was communicating in a way where he knew that I was expecting to go back to the script writing, at least the portion that I had done already, and that I would eventually get paid for that. Most people have enough honesty in them, have enough integrity, where they're going to feel pretty bad. Like he would have felt pretty bad after that conversation if after the strategy was complete, he ended up abandoning the script writing entirely, and then he used the whole miscommunication issue as like an escape. And then he came back and said like, hey, we're not going to do the script writing at all. Sorry about that. Like I knew that he would feel bad doing that. And that was right. After we approved the script, he was like, all right, I want to initiate you going back to those first 3 scripts. Go ahead and finalize those, and then you can bill me that $1,200 again. But he didn't. And then he was going to go into the other 3 scripts after that. But that's still up in the air. We don't know yet whether we'll continue to the other 3 scripts or not. But at the very least, I was able to get my money back and still get paid the same amount for having put in the time to those scripts. It was 2 weeks later that I ended up getting paid from when I initially billed it. But in the end, I got paid, and now I have a happy client that's likely to leave me a positive review because I was willing to provide exceptional customer service. So, lesson learned is that in the situation where their desire for a refund has some reasonable ground, because like in the end, I was still partly responsible for the miscommunication. There's things I could have done to make it more clear. Now, if I went out of my way to spell it out super clearly to him, what was in that project, and I got a response from him saying, yes, I understand that this, and this is a part of this project, and it was all written down and documented that he agreed to that, then we'd be in a different situation. That's where I likely would not have refunded him, because I would have said, here's documented proof that you agreed to each of these bullet points and you responded summarizing each bullet point. Like, you have to go to that extent to get clarity on the expectations. And in that case, I would have pushed a little harder to not give the refund, because I would have been like, hey, we were on super clear terms. You even spelled out to me exactly what you're expecting me to do, but you forgot or you're trying to get out of this somehow. Yeah, that's where I would end up trying to figure out some other creative way of still ending the relationship on a positive note, but ultimately not giving him that refund for that. So hopefully this is helpful to you in figuring out, if you've had similar situations, please comment below, tell me your story, and I can give some advice on maybe what I would have done differently, or I'll let you know if, hey, you did the right thing on how you approach that. This is an important skill to learn when navigating client relationships in order to keep your business growing and get good referrals, get a good rating and review, and ultimately be able to find that next client. If you haven't already, be sure to check the links below to the different courses that I have. I have a membership program where I will work with you more directly on your Upwork profile, on your proposals, on helping coach you through the process of finding more clients. And also there's other courses that you can look at. There's a $7 course just for your Upwork profile, super affordable. Go ahead and check that out in the link below. And also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let me know what kind of topics you want me to do more videos on so that you can be on your way to becoming a more successful freelancer.